Hello world, I was C Cortez coming here live from Web3, and I got some very important information I want to share. In fact, it's going to be a hybrid of technical learnings, philosophy, NFTs, entire sporadic sphere of Web3. And right now, I was just going through a really, I would say, important thread on Twitter. It's probably one of the most profound threads I've ever read about Web3, and specifically it was talking about NFTs and the philosophy behind that. So I think I was going to start more on my daily learnings, but this is such a good piece of information that my mental state is gravitating towards just sharing this at the moment. So to begin, I want to start off by talking about NFTs and what essentially is happening under the hood. So with NFTs, from a outsider perspective, they think this is a craze. They think this is idiotic, lunatic, intangible, hence being invaluable. I literally had this conversation with my parents today. Um, but then on the other half, you have extreme believers. You're saying this is going to change the world. This philosophy that crypto is the future, right? And how can there be such polarizing viewpoints if something's so good? Well, the thing is that crypto and blockchain is multi-dimensional, meaning that multiple fields come in and intersect to create a common and baseline understanding. And once you bridge and merge those perspectives and domains, lipo moment, that's when essentially your perspective can have a binary switch. It's your aha moment. And I remember when I first had it was really more about when I had my first NFT purchase. The fact that I converted US dollar, which was legal tender, to a digital currency that nobody owns, that's based off protocols which are having base rules of encryption into this blockchain technology that is open to the world, and it works. And that currency could be a storage value, but it can also be a transaction oriented currency. So I was like, okay, this is really interesting. But when I had the light bulb moment was because I've had that understanding. I knew about encryption, I knew about blockchain, I knew about pseudonymous, about the policy protocols and the amount of money that was circulating. But where I had my aha moment was through the purchase of my first NFT. When I saw it in my wallet, it's like those stories you hear about people when Web2, when they first made their piece of code towards an application, or when they joined Reddit and the community was beautiful and they were hooked. This is happening in a new wave called Web3. So derivatives of this are happening in vertical fields simultaneously. Like you have DAOs, you have DeFi, you have NFTs, you have protocols, and all of these systems being built around the core system of blockchain. But NFTs by far are the ones that have the most eyeballs. Reason being is because it's more consumer centric. You can be technical, you can have protocol understanding and be an NFTs. But then at the same time, you can just be a flipper, a day-to-day person that just browses on the web and sees something they like and then purchases. And it happens over time, right? So things are, I guess the phrase I would say is multiple people can put their hand in the jar. Protocol, who can put their hand in the jar? Extremely technical core devs. To be a blockchain developer, it's not easy. To be a dApp developer, which is what works with the protocol layers, is not easy. So who can get their head into that jar? The developers, technical people. Okay. And then even on top of that, like with Solidity and Open Zeppelin and documentation, more and more people, everyday people can become technical enough to launch, to create, to build on the blockchain thanks to these advancements. Like to write a smart contract, you don't really have to write a smart contract. You literally bring in an existing one, make some changes, push it, you're good to go. It's not in the sense you're learning to code, it's learning how to work with code. That's a big difference because to learn to code, you have to think, you have to pull the information out of your head to execute in a logical manner to get to the outcome that you want. When you're doing it like this, you just bring it in and you can slap it on. Of course, you have to know what you're doing. And in the worst case scenario that, your project, your collection could flop or you have a security vulnerability. Although a lot of this mitigation is happening. Regardless, the point is that more and more people can put their hand in the jar, even on the development standpoint. And this becomes a transition between history in the sense that more and more people are now getting into crypto, into blockchain. And this is opening doors. And in economics, this is really when a network effect starts to kick in, meaning that the more nodes that are in the cluster, the better the beneficiary are the other nodes, and it just starts compounding. So blockchain itself is having a network effect among society through NFTs. And there's two derivatives I could take this conversation of how it's going to change incentives, economies, infrastructure, so on. But I'll save that conversation possibly for entire video in itself. But where I want to dive in is on the NFT development for identity. So in the case of consumers, more and more people joining the network effect and buying NFTs, what are they experiencing? What is happening under the hood? How we started the video. And what happens is that they're really embedding an identity. They're adopting philosophies, they're adopting culture, they're adopting habits, they're adapting perspectives. They're developing themselves online. Their online identity is being summoned. I think that's an appropriate word. I don't say that lightly. I say that once you realize and start developing on the web to this extreme point, you do summon a new identity. And what can NFTs do? They can be the vehicle for that identity. And this is where things get interesting, right? To give a tangent example is view how polarizing the identities of Republicans are versus Democrats. At the end of the day, they're both human beings. They're both people that can think. Some of the opposite parties says they won't be able to, but what's happening under the hood is these people are byproducts of the belief, the culture, the philosophies, the perspectives that party, that node is delivering to them. So they are essentially a token for that ideology. NFTs are doing this when pretty much any NFT you purchase is now a bridge for that. You can build an identity based off an NFT that you like, that you resonate with, that or maybe you just like for the art. But the point is you can summon so many identities. Now, with social media, this is where I think the new bridge of Web3 can happen is complete pseudo anonymous accounts at scale that if you want to be, for example, person A, which is creative, fun, and let's say flamboyant, you can do that. You can surf that social media platform or whatever it may be. And then several hours later, or maybe the next day or whenever, you can become an entire new identity and reap the benefits of having the other identity inside that node. So you like a culting pot starts compounding because more and more identities are being created and they work, right? They're flowing. And we're not going to be operating off business models where conglomerates suck our data. Like this is going to be decentralized. Things are just going to navigate organically. That's the beautiful thing about this is that once things navigate organically, beneficiary and true genuine progression can happen because if it's artificially fed, it just keeps getting reinforced. And that's what Facebook is doing, right? It's reinforcing back to those ideologies of polarizing viewpoints. Why? Because once it knows what you like, it's just going to keep giving you cookies, you know, mental cookies or junk food or mm, yeah, cognitive garbage to recycle that dopamine that is just going to reinforce it. So you can start off lightly, you can start off moderately, but then you're going to start becoming an extremist. Why? Because it was artificially fed to you. That's not going to happen on this Web3. No, 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 no. Yeah, I'm getting hyped up just speaking about this because I think this will be a very progressive innovation in technology for humanity. I think, like Web3 has mentioned, it's a grandiose change. It's not something to be taken lightly, and the economics are going to disrupt everything. So, going back to the NFT ideology, it's what's going on today. Well, NFT launches are becoming much more clever, much more advanced, much more strategic, much more calculated. That an NFT can start off as an image, pure image, but it has potential to evolve into a metaverse. It literally is possible in the sense of operations because NFTs are products, evergreen products that this is the profound thing too, is that, excuse me, every time there's a secondary sale, meaning that purchase buyer one sold to buyer two and buyer two sold to buyer three, every single sale that happens, in this case it was three, the creator will get a transaction. It's no longer that, I guess it's the benefit of the currency. It won't just happen on transaction one, which is what we see in Web 2. It's evergreen. Now that's if it's a limited, non-fungible transaction, NFTs, uh, the smart contract aspect. However, this new product of an NFT, it is valuable in the sense of business and new operations because more since it is artificially, limit on supply. Say there's 10,000 units, those 10,000 units are going to keep on moving as the association to the creation starts becoming much more valuable. And to give an example of this, I think I mentioned cyberkongs because cyberkongs are one of the coolest NFTs that are implementing utilization. So in a sense, when you buy cyberkong, you get what's known as banana coin, and banana coin has true value. It's pegged to ether, so it's pegged to the ether currency. And every day that you hold a cyberkong, you generate more and more banana coins. And the banana coins are going to become tokens for the cyberkong universe or this digital space. It might start off as a website, but it could evolve into a virtual reality world. Regardless, the banana coin is useful in this world. And if you own a cyberkong, great, you can start generating this coin because you believe that this world will be valuable in the future. And then more and more people hear about this. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I want a cyberkong. And the cyberkong just starts selling for more because more and more people want it and they're willing to pay more. And that's the key part too, is they're willing to pay more. Why? Because they believe in the potential build out of the company or the creator. And that's why I'm saying an NFT can start off as an image, but it has the potential to be built up all the way to a metaverse. Of course, you're probably gonna need venture funding, but you're definitely on another type of wave. And this is where Learn comes in. Learnio. I mean, we tried to raise venture capital for around a year, and oh, you're too early. All these biases, all these soft no's. In my opinion, I mean, I could definitely see. We were young. There's it was an early stage, and there are variables that are to the aspect. But we were talking to pre-revenue investors, like investors that invest in early companies. And what ended up happening? Something made them say no. It could be bias, it could be true product, and other variables. But regardless, well, we tried for a year and we couldn't do it. So we're like, excuse me, you know what? Fuck it. Let's launch an NFT. Let's get funded this way. This is the Web3. These are the people that we know we are. We're autodidacts. We don't have we don't have a degree, I should say. And that's the shame that you tie education to a degree. And that in itself is an outdated system monopolized by universities, which is, not even Web 2, not even Web 1. This is a system throughout centuries of humanity. So trying to tackle it, of course, some 22-year-old kid out of his parents' house is not going to create a system to shut it down. But the vision was there. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to build education on the web, on the internet. But guess what? We were building this on Web 2. So when we found out about Web 3, that you can do on-chain documentation of data, you can do proof of work in challenges, that you can do so much on Web 3, keep it on chain, and then you can verify competency in education. Why wouldn't we get excited? Why wouldn't we become obsessed in this world? So that goes off to NFTs too. It's going to yield, and this is just one sector of disruption, is that companies and visionaries will now be able to launch things, gain a following, a community of people that believe in them, generate a product, get enough revenue to get off the ground. And if you got something off the ground already, you can raise venture capital. But we're not too early. We got deal heat, but the decision making is in our behalf. Okay, so that's where things flip, right? Rather from going out and pitching and selling yourself and being corporate and following the patterns, all that type of bullshit. I'm gonna be honest, it's a different game. It's real. I understand the processes, but at the same time, it's political, it's esoteric, it's not really meritocratic, it's not truly value based. Deals are done because they hear someone else is doing the deal. Okay, that's kind of bullshit. What about the people that have real talent, real work, real product, but they're not getting presented to these opportunities? Okay, so sorry, that's a little passionate for me, but it's some real stuff. I was in that game. I came out defeated, but look, like it brought us to this point. And I think that I'm not a big, religious, and I should say like spiritual, everything happens for a reason narrative believer. But I'm glad that this happened. I'm glad that we didn't get investors, that we didn't have a ethical obligation to keep on building learn as the way that we sold it. I'm glad that we can shift focus and do it. Like this is a privilege of a lifetime, and we're gonna make it happen. All right, and we owe this opportunity to NFTs, not just because it's gonna allow us to get off the ground, not just because it's gonna bring revenue to sustain us, not just because of what it's gonna do about on-chain proof of work, proof of verification, competency, and everything that can do. But we can build a metaverse. I've thought about this already in the sense of an educational metaverse. It's ambitious, yes, but it's a possibility that we can reach towards. This was not possible with Web 2. This was not possible with what we were building prior. We had to set a new foundation and build a tower upward and horizontally as well. So it just kind of blows my mind that we're here. NFTs are a beautiful piece of innovation, and it's blockchain, right? And blockchain is the engine that makes this work. It's going to change everything from banking, from the way people live day to day, from social interactions. Um, it's going to be a grand change in humanity's timeline. That's for sure. I'll save my theories for another day, but I think regardless, the impact is going to be in the timeline. So I think this is where I hit pause. Get back to the computer, doing some learning, some reading. So I'm about to drive. I've been speaking a lot. Didn't prep with some water. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this, thank you. It means a lot. It means a good amount to know that people are out there. People are interested and curious. We need people to think in a very advanced domain and challenge statuses, challenge status quos, and be crazy enough to do it. Like, trust me, I've had so many days where I wake up and I'm like, like the stress, the doubt, the uncertainty. It's real. I'm a human being. The future is unforeseeable and it'll shake you up sometimes, but you got to be strong enough to get rattled up if you have to, but come back and build your armor, prepare, keep moving forward, get it done. And the thing is, changes like this take decades. It doesn't happen in a couple months. It doesn't happen in a couple years. I've been at this for over 5 years. Yeah, I graduated 2016. I started my first venture there. It's 2021, about to be 2022. Still going at it as hard as I started. And that's 6 years, and I haven't scratched the surface. I haven't even got in. I haven't I haven't got anywhere in 6 years. Is it delusion? Honestly, like that's where the uncertainty kicks in. But that's where you transition and view it based off objective viewpoints that you can rationalize with. Is what actions are you taking? What building? What metrics do you have? And that's what was the beauty about building learn, is that everything I had learned prior, I was executing real time, and I was getting we get strangers from around the world to come sign up for the platform. We had growth. We had something in our hands, but due to limitations and circumstances that were out of our control, we had a halt, rebuilt, pivot. Okay, that's the process. We were on to something grandiose. It got paused, but to transition got even more grandiose. And this is part of the process. Like I guess in hindsight, that's the only true way that you catch it. And when you catch it, that's when the trust gets reinforced. And that's what keeps it going. I'm sure all the people that have built great things, even if they got success early on, a lot of people get success in a couple years. It's quite common, but that's the narrative, and that itself is survivorship bias. You just focus on, could be the few people that talk about grand scale change, explicitly talk about decades, and your character involvement, right? If you can say, I'm a completely different person than I was last year, for the better, and I've advanced my judgment, I'm more calculated, I can maneuver through this timeline of my life in a more efficient and effective manner, and you feel that you're progressing, okay, then that's working. Whatever you're doing is working. And no one can tell you what that is. No one can take it away from you. That's internal judgment that is discernment from your it might be God, it might be consciousness, but it's that judgment that you have that bridge of consciousness. Utilize it. Utilize it. You have to utilize it. I think can talk a little bit more higher than consciousness itself. So we'll call it a night there. Thank you for tuning in.